Tonight, we step into a world where the ice holds no mercy and the sea offers no second chances. You find yourself standing on the creaking deck of a wooden caravel, feeling the bitter wind slice through your coat as the ship groans against something far stronger than timber. The hull shudders beneath your feet, and you hear the sound that every sailor dreads, the deep, splitting crack of wood giving way to frozen pressure. As soon as the caravel broke in the ice, the peasants aboard did something no one expected. They resisted calmly. They did not scream. They did not panic. They simply began to move with a quiet determination that would carry them through the longest night of their lives. You are one of them now. Feel the cold pressing against your cheeks as you watch the bow of the ship tilt slowly toward the frozen sea. The year is 1847, and this vessel carries no wealthy merchants or decorated officers. It carries farming families from a small coastal village, people who left everything behind for the promise of new land across the northern waters. They knew the journey would be dangerous. They did not know it would become a story of survival that would echo through generations. You step carefully across the tilting deck, gripping the rail as ice crystals form on your eyelashes. Around you, men and women move with purpose, gathering supplies, securing children, speaking in low, steady voices. There is fear here. You can smell it beneath the salt and frozen timber. But there is something stronger, too. These are people who have faced harsh winters before. They have buried crops under early frost and watched livestock freeze in their barns. The ice may have claimed their ship, but it has not yet claimed their spirit. The captain's name is Thomas Harwick, a man of 50 years with hands roughened by decades of rope and salt water. You watch him emerge from below deck, his face pale, but his voice steady as he addresses the passengers. The ship will not survive the night, he tells them. The ice has breached the lower hull in 3 places. But there is land visible to the east, perhaps 2 miles across the frozen surface. If they move quickly and stay together, they might reach it before the cold takes them. You feel the weight of his words settle over the crowd like a heavy blanket. 2 miles across treacherous ice in temperatures that freeze exposed skin within minutes. Children cling to their mothers. Old men grip walking sticks with white knuckles. Yet no one argues. No one demands the impossible. They simply begin to prepare. A woman named Margaret Thornton organizes the children into small groups, assigning each group to an adult who will guide them across the ice. Her voice carries clearly through the frozen air, calm and practical, as though she is arranging a village market rather than an emergency evacuation. You learn later that Margaret lost her husband to fever 3 months before the voyage. She joined this expedition because she had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. That combination, you realize, creates a particular kind of courage. You help carry supplies to the deck as the ship continues its slow descent into the ice. Blankets, dried meat, water skins, anything that might help them survive the crossing and whatever waits beyond. A young man named Samuel works beside you, his breath forming thick clouds in the darkness. He tells you he is 17, traveling with his mother and younger sister. His father stayed behind to sell the family farm and will follow on the next ship. You do not tell Samuel that there may not be a next ship. You do not tell him that the ice this far north rarely releases its grip until spring. Instead, you hand him another bundle of supplies and nod toward the gathering crowd near the gangway. The first group begins their descent onto the ice just as the moon breaks through the clouds. The frozen surface gleams silver and treacherous beneath the pale light. You watch children being lowered carefully down the ship's side, their small bodies wrapped in every piece of clothing their families could spare. The ice groans beneath their weight, a deep, hollow sound that makes your stomach clench. But it holds. For now, it holds. Captain Harwick leads the way with a long pole, testing each step before he takes it. Behind him stretches a line of peasants, their figures growing smaller against the vast white expanse. You count them as they go. 47 souls, beginning a journey across frozen death toward an uncertain shore. You are among the last to leave the ship. As your feet touch the ice, you feel it shift subtly beneath you, alive with hidden currents and pressure fractures. The cold rises through your boots immediately, numbing your toes within seconds. You understand now why the captain urged speed. Standing still on this ice means freezing to it. The caravel behind you lets out a tremendous groan as another section of hull gives way. You do not look back. Looking back helps no one. Instead, you focus on the figure ahead of you, a broad-shouldered farmer named William, whose steady pace creates a rhythm you can follow. One step, then another, then another. The mathematics of survival reduced to its simplest form. The first crisis comes 20 minutes into the crossing. A section of ice ahead of the group suddenly darkens, the sure sign of water pooling beneath a weakening surface. Captain Harwick raises his hand, and the entire line stops, standing motionless on the frozen sea, while wind cuts across their exposed faces. You watch as the captain circles carefully around the dark patch, testing the ice with his pole. Each tap sends vibrations you can feel through your own feet. The children have gone completely silent, their eyes wide in the moonlight. Even the youngest seem to understand that noise could be fatal here, that a sudden movement might send cracks racing through the surface beneath them. Harwick finds a path. He signals the group to follow, leading them in a wide arc that adds precious minutes to their journey, but keeps them on solid footing. You step where others have stepped, placing your feet exactly in the prints left by those ahead. The ice here is rougher, ridged with frozen waves that catch your boots and threaten to trip you. But it is white ice, thick ice, the kind that will hold a person's weight without complaint. Margaret Thornton walks just ahead of you now, one arm wrapped around a small girl who cannot be more than 5 years old. The child's lips have turned blue, but Margaret keeps her moving, keeps her blood flowing, keeps her alive through sheer determination. You hear Margaret whispering to the girl, telling her stories about warm summer days and fields full of wildflowers. The words seem almost absurd in this frozen wasteland, but you understand their purpose. Hope is a form of heat. Stories can warm what blankets cannot reach. An hour passes. The ship has disappeared behind you, swallowed by distance and darkness. Ahead, the shoreline grows slowly larger, revealing itself as a rocky coast backed by dense forest. You can see no lights, no signs of habitation, but the land itself represents salvation. Trees mean firewood, forest means shelter from the wind, solid ground means an end to the constant fear of falling through into black frozen water. But the ice has one more trial to offer before it releases you. Samuel's mother, a thin woman named Eleanor, suddenly stumbles and falls. You hear her cry out, hear the sickening crack of ice beneath her body. The line stops instantly. People turn, their faces pale with terror, expecting to see a hole opening in the surface. Instead, they see Eleanor lying flat on the ice, her ankle twisted at a wrong angle, her breath coming in sharp gasps of pain. She has broken her leg. 2 miles from any help, on ice that could give way at any moment, Eleanor has broken her leg. The group faces its first impossible choice. Moving forward means leaving Eleanor behind to freeze. Staying means risking everyone's lives while the ice continues to weaken beneath their collective weight. You watch the calculation happen on every face, the terrible arithmetic of survival playing out in frozen silence. William, the broad-shouldered farmer, steps forward without a word. He crouches beside Eleanor and lifts her onto his back as though she weighs nothing at all. His face shows the strain, but his voice remains steady when he speaks. "We move together," he says. "We reach the shore together. No one gets left behind." No one argues. The line reforms around William and his burden, with stronger adults taking positions nearby to help if he falters. Samuel walks beside his mother, his young face tight with fear and gratitude. The group begins moving again, slower now, but moving. The final stretch of ice seems to take forever. Each step feels heavier than the last as exhaustion joins forces with cold. Pain means circulation, returning to extremities that nearly surrendered to the cold. Margaret Thornton takes charge of rationing the food. She divides the supplies into careful portions, enough to maintain strength without depleting their reserves too quickly. Children eat first, then the injured, then the elderly. The strongest adults eat last and least, giving what they can to those who need it more. This hierarchy emerges naturally, without discussion or debate. These are people who understand scarcity. They have lived through hungry winters before. You chew slowly on a strip of dried meat, savoring the salt and protein, as your body remembers that food exists beyond the constant awareness of cold. Around the fire, conversations begin to emerge from the silence of survival. People share names and origins, discovering connections they never knew existed. 2 families come from neighboring villages. An old man recognizes a young woman as the daughter of a merchant he once traded with. These small recognitions weave threads of community through the group, binding strangers into something closer to family. The first full day on shore passes in a blur of activity. Teams rotate through various tasks, resting by the fire between shifts. A shelter begins to take shape beneath the trees, its walls made of woven branches packed with snow for insulation. It will not be comfortable, but it will block the wind and hold the heat of bodies huddled together. The design comes from an old farmer who spent winters in the mountains as a young man. He directs the construction with quiet authority, correcting mistakes without criticism, praising effort without excessive words. Night falls quickly this far north, the darkness arriving like a curtain being drawn across the sky. The group gathers inside the shelter, pressing close together for warmth. The fire outside burns lower to conserve wood, but its glow remains visible through the entrance, a small beacon against the overwhelming dark. You lie wedged between William and an elderly woman named Ruth, feeling their warmth seep into your sides.
The shelter smells of smoke, sweat, and fear. But beneath those sharper scents lies something else, something that might be hope. These people have survived the shipwreck, survived the crossing, survived the first day on shore. Each survival builds confidence for the next challenge. Sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by cold and discomfort, and the constant shifting of bodies seeking warmth. You dream of the ship breaking apart, of ice cracking beneath your feet, of Eleanor's cry of pain echoing across frozen silence. But you also dream of summer fields, of warm bread fresh from ovens, of sunlight streaming through windows into comfortable rooms. The mind seeks balance even in sleep, countering nightmares with memories of warmth. Morning brings new challenges and new hope.
William leads a small group deeper into the forest to search for better shelter or signs of habitation. Captain Harwick stays to organize the camp, improving the shelter and expanding the supply of firewood. Margaret tends to Eleanor's leg, cleaning the wound with melted snow and applying fresh bandages torn from someone's extra shirt. You join the exploration team, eager to move after the cramped night in the shelter. The forest feels ancient and indifferent, its trees standing in silent rows that seem to stretch forever. Snow covers everything in a uniform white blanket, hiding rocks and fallen logs that threaten to trip the unwary. You walk carefully, following William's tracks, listening to the strange silence of a winter forest where even birds have fled the cold. 2 hours into the search, young Samuel spots something through the trees. A straight line where nature creates only curves. A shape too regular to be random growth. The team approaches cautiously, hearts beating faster as the shape resolves into something unmistakable. A cabin, weathered and abandoned, its roof sagging under the weight of accumulated snow, but definitely a cabin. Human construction. Evidence that people have survived in this wilderness before. William reaches the door first. The wood is frozen shut, locked tight by months of winter weather. He puts his shoulder against it and pushes, the frame groaning in protest before finally giving way. Cold air rushes out, carrying the musty smell of abandonment. But beneath that smell lies something else, something that makes William's face light up with the first genuine smile you have seen since the ship. Firewood, stacked neatly against the back wall, enough to burn for weeks. The discovery transforms everything. The group relocates to the cabin over the course of the afternoon, carrying supplies and invalids through the forest in a slow procession. The building is small, too small for 47 people to live comfortably, but it offers solid walls and a proper fireplace and protection from wind that the makeshift shelter could never match. They divide themselves between the cabin and the improved shelter, with the most vulnerable taking priority for indoor space. Eleanor finally receives proper care, her leg splinted correctly and her body warmed by actual walls and a real fire. The color begins returning to her face as she sleeps through her first comfortable night since the ship. Days begin to blur together. The group establishes routines that will carry them through the long wait for rescue. Firewood gathering in the morning, food rationing at midday, repairs and improvements in the afternoon, stories and songs around the fire at night. The rhythms of survival become familiar, almost comfortable. Captain Harwick leads small expeditions along the coastline, searching for signs of other settlements or passing ships. Fear begins to creep back. the terrible possibility that the vessel might be abandoned, might itself be a wreck frozen in place, might offer nothing but false hope to people who have already survived so much. Then a figure appears on deck, small and distant, barely visible without straining eyes, but definitely moving. The figure turns toward shore, pauses, and then begins waving back. Rescue has arrived. The ship is a supply vessel blown off course by the same storm that nearly killed the survivors. Its captain spotted the signal fires while searching for a safe harbor. By afternoon, small boats begin ferrying the weakest survivors out to the ship. By evening, everyone has been brought aboard, wrapped in warm blankets, given hot soup and bread. You sit in the ship's galley, feeling warmth seep back into bones that had forgotten what warmth meant. Around you, the survivors eat slowly, their bodies remembering gradually how to process food that does not need to be rationed. Children laugh for the first time in weeks. Adults weep with relief and exhaustion. Margaret sits in the corner, finally allowing herself to rest after days of being strong for everyone else. William has refused to come below deck. He stands at the rail, watching the shoreline fade into the distance as the ship begins its journey south. You join him there, feeling the wind against your face, watching the same frozen wilderness that nearly killed you slowly disappear behind the horizon. He speaks without looking at you. 26 days, he says. 26 days on the ice and that frozen shore. 47 people, not one lost. You stand in silence, letting the weight of that statement settle. Not one lost. The ship breaking apart in the ice, the crossing in darkness, the desperate camp, the storm, the starvation, and still not one lost. The Caravel broke in the ice, you think, and the peasants resisted calmly. They did not panic. They did not surrender. They simply faced each challenge as it came, drawing strength from each other, finding courage in community, surviving through the quiet determination that comes from knowing you are not alone. The ship carries you south toward civilization, toward warm beds and full plates, and the resumption of ordinary life. But you know that nothing about your life will be ordinary after this. You have walked across frozen death. You have starved and shivered and stared into the darkness of near certain doom. And you have survived. All of you, together, have survived. Eleanor stands at the rail nearby, Samuel supporting her as she watches the water pass below. Her leg will heal completely in time. She will walk without a crutch again. And when spring comes, when the ice retreats and the shipping lanes reopen, she and Samuel will continue their journey to the new land they sought before the ice took their first ship. This time, they will arrive. Margaret has already begun planning what comes next.
Guia de estilo e instruções para a síntese de fala. Início das instruções. Você é narrador, palestrante, com voz potente, forte e autoritária. O tom deve ser firme e inabalável. Contexto de continuidade. A frase anterior era: Arret has already begun planning what comes next. Você está no meio de uma frase ou pensamento. Mantenha o ritmo e a força vocal sem quebrar a conexão. Haja como se estivesse transmitindo uma verdade fundamental. Fim das instruções. She speaks of organizing the survivors, of helping them establish themselves in their new home, of building the community they glimpsed during their days of crisis. The bonds formed in that frozen forest will not break simply because warm walls now surround them. They have become something together that they could never have become alone. Captain Harwick shakes hands with the rescue ship's captain, two men of the sea recognizing each other's competence and courage. They will share drinks later, trading stories of storms survived and disasters averted. The captain will tell of his passengers, of their calm in crisis, of the way they organized themselves without orders or arguments. He will call them the bravest peasants he ever transported, and the rescue captain will raise his glass in agreement. You stand at the rail as night falls, watching stars emerge in a sky no longer threatening. The cold has retreated to a comfortable distance. The fear has faded into memory. What remains is gratitude, profound and simple, for warmth and food and the company of people who refused to let circumstances defeat them. 26 days ago, you stood on a ship breaking apart in the ice. You felt fear and uncertainty, and the terrible knowledge that survival was far from certain. But you also felt something else, something that carried you across the frozen surface and through the endless dark, something that burned like a small fire in your chest, even when the real fire nearly died. You felt hope. Not the naive hope of people who have never faced hardship, but the earned hope of those who know how dark things can get and choose to keep moving anyway. That hope lives in you still, strengthened rather than diminished by everything you have endured. The ship sails on through the night, carrying its cargo of survivors toward whatever waits beyond the horizon. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new uncertainties, new reasons to doubt and fear. But it will also bring new opportunities, new connections, new reasons to believe that human beings can face almost anything when they face it together. Your eyes grow heavy as the gentle rocking of the ship lulls you toward sleep. But this time the sleep feels different, safe and deep, and free from the terrors that haunted your frozen nights. You have earned this rest. All of you have earned it. The ice took your ship, but not your spirit. The cold tested your body, but not your resolve. The darkness surrounded you, but never swallowed you whole. And now, wrapped in warmth you once doubted you would ever feel again, you let yourself drift into peaceful slumber. The story of the broken Caravel and the calm peasants has reached its ending. But for you and the 46 others who survived those 26 days, a new story is just beginning. Whatever chapters lie ahead, you will face them with the knowledge that you have already survived the worst. You will face them with the friendships forged in crisis.